Donald Trump was recently charged with a conspiracy to subvert the 2020 election, which questioning the results apparently represents. I've pared the charges here down to the bare minimum required to convey the necessary information, and you really don't need very much. This is really all there is to it. From November 14th, 2020 through January 20th, 2021 in the District of Columbia and elsewhere. Count 1. Conspiracy to defraud the US. Trump conspired to obstruct and defeat the federal government function by which the results of the presidential elections are collected, counted and certified. And even just that really is the lot. Trump conspired to obstruct the electoral process, and everything else is basically a variation of that. Counts 2 and 3. Conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction of an official proceeding. Trump conspired to obstruct and attempted to and did obstruct an official proceeding, that is, the certification of the electoral vote. So counts 2 and 3 take the certification bit at the end of the first count and repeat it. Count 4. Conspiracy against rights. Trump conspired to oppress and intimidate one or more persons in the free exercise and enjoyment of the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. Count 4 is count 1 with a focus on people rather than process. So the whole thing is simply one sentence. Trump, in disputing the result, conspired to obstruct the electoral process. And he did that because he thought it was fraudulent, which it was. There was already evidence to that effect. In early 2021, Louder with Crowder did an investigation of fraudulent addresses on the Nevada electoral roll, Nevada being a key swing state. And that video, although it was predictably initially deleted by YouTube, is actually now back on YouTube. They went to such efforts to do everything by the book. Addresses on the Nevada electoral roll included, and probably still do include, empty parking lots, empty spaces, more empty spaces, houses which don't exist. We're looking for 221, this is 219, that's 223, and 221 is that space on the left in between. Areas of grassland, underpasses, warehouses, and what looks like an abandoned airport. All those were listed as the home addresses of various Nevada voters, so back in 2021 we knew that there was much fraud afoot. That much is proven. Now here we have the police involved even earlier in late 2020 in Michigan, which is another one of the key swing states, again before the election, where a local town clerk in a town in Michigan got suspicious and called in the police, which has now been outed in an article in the Gateway Pundit. I'm going to read some key bits from the report. Michigan Department of State Police. On 16th of October 2020, Muskegon City Clerk Ann Meisch and Deputy Clerk Kimberly Young contacted the Muskegon Police Department after noticing irregularities in voter registration applications received both in person and by mail. Meisch received a small quantity and then larger quantities of voter registration applications by mail from a female later identified as X. It was found that X was working for a company called Something, who also went by the name Something Else. Meisch stated that in her opinion a quantity of the voter registration forms were highly suspicious and possibly fraudulent. This is not a hard grapes election result denier, because the election hadn't actually happened yet, so there was nothing to deny. And she might have had good cause to worry. Meisch's opinion was based on the fact that numerous forms appeared to have been completed by the same writer, and upon initial examination, addresses on multiple forms were invalid or non-existent. Meisch investigated further and found that phone numbers on multiple forms were erroneous, and signatures on multiple forms didn't appear to match signatures on file with the Department of Secretary of State. Examples included an address in the X and another in the X. Those addresses do not exist in the Muskegon City House numbering system. Another form listed 80 West Southern Avenue, which is the address for the Muskegon High School and is clearly not a residence. Invalid or non-existent. Does any of this from Michigan ring any bells from anywhere else? Invalid or non-existent addresses. That one there is definitely non-existent, and that is invalid, it being what looks like an abandoned airport. What was happening in Nevada, as uncovered by Crowder, was also happening in Michigan. That city clerk found the person responsible for the forms, one Brianna Hawkins. Maisch estimated that she had delivered between 8,000 to 10,000 voter registration forms to the Muskegon City Clerk's office. Maisch turned over 42 suspected fraudulent applications to Officer Foster for examination. Then there was a follow-up investigation on the 27th of October. Detective Luca contacted the supposed owner of a given registration form. She stated she was approached by an acquaintance and badgered to fill out a voter registration form. She was shown a completed voter registration application by Detective Luca, and she stated she filled out the form but did not sign it. She stated the signature at the bottom of the form was not hers and she had no idea who had signed the form. She was shown a second completed form with her name and supposed signature on it. She stated that was not her handwriting and she had no idea who completed the form or signed it. The form had the following errors: fictitious last four numbers of social security number, fictitious phone number, and invalid address. Your affiant knows McLaughlin and Terrace to be an intersection and not a residence. Detective Luca examined 2 voter registration applications to conduct follow-up and found the following issues. Detective Luca found the address on both forms does not exist. The name on the first form was searched in Muskegon IMS, Countywide Report Management System, LEIN, and Michigan Secretary of State. The name on the second form was etc. That name was searched in the same 3 databases. Detective Luca examined 2 voter registration applications to conduct follow-up and found the following issues. Detective Luca found the address on both forms does not exist. The name on the first form, etc., was searched in Muskegon IMS, LEIN, and Michigan SOS. The name on the second form is listed as etc. with a duplicate date of etc. So-and-so was searched in the same 3 databases. Detective Luca and your affiant examined a batch of 18 separate voter registration applications. When the applications were printed out and placed side by side, the handwriting on the 18 forms appear to be done by the same writer and numerous signatures have similar characteristics. Your affiant noted that multiple forms were missing key information, had duplicate last names at different addresses, and had inaccurate information. After consulting with Muskegon PD detectives and MDOS analyst Corey Ames, your affiant would describe the results as finding that a quantity of the voter application forms are clearly fraudulent, a quantity of the voter application forms are highly suspicious, having either erroneous or are missing key pieces of information and merit further follow-up, and a quantity of the voter registration forms appear to be legitimate based on cross-checks and database reviews. According to the Gateway Pundit, all of this was handed to the FBI, who did nothing. The company involved is one GBI Strategies. It's mentioned here, cardboard box containing GBI Strategies vehicle manifesto packets. That is definitely the company, because all the money they received, which you're going to see in a moment, checks out on their opensecrets.org page. The numbers on this page are identical, as you'll see in a second. So, looking into the company, analyst de Groot researched GBI Strategies. De Groot found that GBI Strategies had a vendor recipient profile dating back to 2014. In the 2018 midterm campaign cycle, de Groot found that GBI Strategies was paid $1.5 million by the Doug Jones for Senate Committee, $650,000 by the New American Jobs Fund, and $188,000 by the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. Doug Jones was a Democrat senator. That Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee sounds non-partisan because they say Democratic rather than Democrat, but it is actually a Democrat operation. Although the final numbers for the 2020 campaign cycle won't be available for quite some time, estimates were located using the same website. The company was estimated to receive $242,000 from Joe Biden for president and $242,000 from Gary Peters for Senate. Gary Peters is a Democrat senator, but he doesn't actually appear to have sent them anything at all. Joe Biden obviously is a Democrat, and in the event they actually received more from Biden than was estimated. As you can see from Open Secrets, Creepy Joe Inc. sent $450,000, almost twice as much. So this is an operation to register voters who are planning on voting for Biden. And just to clarify that, this is an interview with an employee. She advised she was a temporary employee of GBI Strategies as a canvasser and was reporting for her 3:30 p.m. shift. She worked for the company for approximately 3 weeks. I asked what her duties entailed, and she said she went door to door in the Muskegon area asking residents to take a survey regarding the upcoming election. She explained the survey consisted of questions asking the individuals if they intended to vote, had they already voted, and if they supported former Vice President Joe Biden for president. This is a scam Democrat voter registration operation. I counted from all of the above 64 fraudulent forms. 64 is not a whole heck of a lot, but you have to assume that's most likely the tip of the iceberg, and the actual number will probably run into hundreds, maybe even thousands. This woman herself brought in over 12,000 completed voter registration forms. Just 64 were fraudulent. Seems a bit unlikely. And you have to remember, this was Michigan, where they were famously bringing in lorry loads of ballots under the cover of darkness at 3 o'clock in the morning and boarding up the counting room. So this is fraud. Numerous forms appear to have been completed by the same writer, addresses on multiple forms were invalid or non-existent, phone numbers on multiple forms were erroneous, and signatures on multiple forms didn't appear to match signatures on file with the Department of Secretary of State. All of that is noted in the report by the Michigan State Police as carried out by a scam Democrat voter registration company and never subsequently investigated by the FBI because the scam was a Democrat scam. So,
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side.
this may not prove that the election was stolen because you'd need a whole lot more verified, falsified voter registration forms in order to swing Michigan for Trump, and then you'd need something similar in at least 3 other swing states. But at least it is a proven factual piece of the puzzle. Proven fraud.